Test. We are live. Let's see what we got going on here. All right, cool. We're set up live in the chat. All right, guys. So today's midnight demonstration right here. Still working on the 01 through 02 Yamaha WR250F. And basically, we're at a point right now. We got the rear tire off. We have a brand new tire right here. We're going to go ahead and be installing this Bridgestone Battle Axe X30R, as well as this Kenda Tough Tube. It's pretty thick. The original tube looked pretty good, but who knows how long it's been in there for. Rubber tends to dry rot. This is brand new rubber here, so we're going to go ahead and install brand new rubber and tires. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and check the trueness of this rim here. Kind of double check the spokes, see how tight they are, and just kind of want to go over some little tips and tricks that I've learned. A rim like this is typically going to be beat to shit. Most people don't check the spokes on them, but right off the bat, you can tell it's pretty dang true. Doesn't really have too much side to side or up and down play. So what you're trying to basically do is you're trying to get all the spokes in equally tightened in a way where the side to side movement and up and down movement of the rim is all equal and concentric. And there's a way to do that. Most of the rims are electronically done on machines nowadays, but it's really easy if you kind of do it periodically versus letting it get loose or trying to respoke a rim yourself. If you're going to respoke it, usually takes a little bit more time to get it pretty dialed in without having any hop in it or side to side action. So on this one right here, it looks like it's pretty dialed in right off the spot. It does look like it has a couple little bends in the rim. So we're gonna go ahead and measure anyways. I'm pretty sure it's pretty close or about as good as it's gonna get. And then we're just gonna check the spoke nipple torque by hand and kind of get a feel for it. And the whole thing with sometimes it can be deceiving when checking the spoke or to make sure that the wheel spokes are tight. On a newer bike, not a big deal, but something that's really old like this bike's over 20 years old. So there's a good chance, depending on how it was maintained or if it's been serviced in the past, typically these nipples, the nut here, and the spokes themselves, typically they'll seize or they'll start to bind up, especially if they're loose or over tightened or under tightened, just from the constant, wheel spinning and beating against the ground. Typically, it damages these threads. So if they weren't lubed, uh, and typically most people don't do that unless you take the rim apart and service it. I'll usually do that on my practice and race bikes, but on like my trail bikes, not really. You just check them every now and then, but figure once it's time for a new rim, it's time for a new rim. These rims are expensive and these hubs are probably discontinued. You can definitely get spoke kits and you can get replacement bands. Sometimes you just have to match them up. You have to make sure you're getting the correct band with the right amount of holes in it. It's usually the most critical thing. If you're getting hubs, it's a whole different story. Usually they'll come complete, and then you're just basically trying to make sure the hub width, and then obviously if they'll always typically most hubs are going to be year, make, model specific for the brake rotor and drive sprocket, driven sprocket attachment. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So one thing we can go ahead and do like right off the bat is usually just kind of feel the spokes by hand. Usually if you kind of give them a good squeeze, you can kind of get an idea of if they're loose or if they're at proper tension. So right off the bat, these ones right here feel pretty good. So let's go ahead and just take a quick little reading and see how much runout we have in this rim here. So go ahead and turn that on. I like inches. Let's go ahead and zero her out. This is a Harbor Freight gauge. This thing's pretty decent. I typically don't use my Mitsutoya on the Mitsutoyo, however you pronounce it, on doing rims like this. Usually I'm gonna, just because it kind of scratches, I need to get like a felt pad tip or something. On an old beat up rim, it's not a big deal. If I was doing like a brand new rim with an anodized surface, typically not the case here at my home. If I was at the shop, usually we get a lot more of those, and have a different procedure in how I'll true them. But usually, if you have like a new rim, you would want to put like a felt tip pad on the end of your dial indicator so you're not scratching it, and then you can go ahead and run it. So let's kind of get an idea. Let's go ahead and zero it out right here. How far can I go with this? Harper Freight, baby. Close enough. Okay, so another thing I like to do too is you want to mark your location of where you're going to start. If you don't have this right here is a chalk or a liquid chalk marker. It's a little bit better than using like a permanent Sharpie because I'll usually end up writing all over the rim, especially if all the spokes are loose or I'm doing a wheel lace. Typically, I'll write all over it, like marking different spots, highs and lows, so I can get it pretty dialed in and close. So if you don't have that, one other way is to basically go off of like one of the rim lock or the valve stem holes. And this rim actually has three holes in it. It has one and then two and three. So it has essentially the valve stem was coming out of this hole, and then they had a rim lock right here, and then a rim lock up here. So double rim lock, and that's because this bike was set up in the street. So typically, if you're doing burnouts and stuff like that on something that's not a pressurized, like this right here is a tubeless design, or not a tubeless. This is a tube design rim, not a tubeless. So on a tubeless type rim and tire, as long as it's that proper inflation psi, you can go ahead and do burnouts, and there's very little chance in how they're designed that usually that tire is not going to slip on the rim. Versus on a dirt bike, this type of rim, this is a non-DOT type rim here. The way the tire sits in here, if you don't have a rim lock to basically hold that tire down, it's going to spin that tire and pop and destroy your tube. So sometimes you'll even see on like 500cc dirt bikes, they'll put two rim locks in it. But that's usually something might be a little overkill on a 250cc dirt bike, just because they really don't have that much power. But if you're doing stunts and burnouts and stuff, I guess that would be kind of a preventive measure, would be to put a double rim lock on it. I don't think my customer is going to be doing anything crazy. They're probably just going to be doing standard writing, but since it's already there, I mean, we might as well. It's not going to hurt anything. If I decided that I didn't want to, let's see, we'd probably go valve stem and rim lock, or we could go across from each other. It's not really a big deal. Go one and the other, so it's a little bit more balanced. And then doing that makes tire installation typically a little bit better. It all depends on how you want to do it. You could do them right here too, valve stem and rim lock, and then basically put your tire on, and you should be good to go. Uh, if you wanted to, if you did decide to just go with one and you had a pre-existing hole, you could just RTV that. Or sometimes what people will do is they'll take the end of the old tube and cut it off, and then basically put the tube through here. That's like something that I'll do in a lot of other techs in the off-road industry for Baja. When basically doing moose tubes, you'll cut off the end of a tube, the valve stem, and stick it in here, and that way when you inflate it, kind of helps spread out the moose tube. That's a procedure for doing moose tubes. That's a whole different topic. But right now we're going to check basically rim run out. So let's find a good spot here. Let's pick this hole for whatever. Let's just mark it right there. That looks like a nice spot. Why not? So let's see. Okay, close enough, 1,000. So we'll get an idea how much run out there is. 10, 15, 16. Going negative, positive, up to 20, back down. Closer. Wow, this thing's actually pretty, I mean, it's pretty good, yeah. And right back to 0. And that's our mark right there. So that's pretty accurate. And that's what I like about this wheel balancing stand too. This one right here is specifically from Harbor Freight. I owned one about their original design about 10 years ago, and it was absolute garbage. I think I kept it around and it ended up being just a shop ornament at the time. But they've come a long way in their design with the double roller bearings. This shaft right here is uh, higher quality, and then the wheel bearing holders, the bore is machined a lot better, and the taper is machined a lot better, so it's a lot more accurate. You can get like a more constant or consistent true. And I don't know how, I can't remember how much I paid, maybe 40, 50 bucks for this. This is almost like $120, $150 value that you're getting. That's typically like, to get this quality here is usually going to be in a $150 stand. So I'm really impressed with this. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of research and find out some similar ones. I know there's a couple other brands. They're going to be a little bit more expensive, but I know Harbor Freight, if you don't have access to one of the stores, then typically only Amazon or online purchases is the only way to go about it. So I'll go ahead and drop a link in the description if you guys want to start balancing and truing your wheels yourself. You can also double this tool here is a wheel balancer. If you have like a motorcycle tire, you can do a gravity balance, which it actually works pretty well. It takes a little bit of time and practice, but you know, it obviously beats the cost. This is a $50 tool versus typically an electronic wheel balancer is $2,500, or you can take it to the shop every time. Typically, you know, it's only what, 30 bucks if you take your tires off, $30 a tire to get them mounted balanced. So you just do the math. It depends on how avid of a rider you are. If you have dirt bikes and motorcycles, and you know, maybe you don't like other mechanics touching your stuff, these are some of the tools that you'd want to have. And this is even getting a little bit deeper. Typically on my pit bikes, the China rims, they don't hold up so well, and I beat the crap out of them. So they typically need a wheel or a rim truing more periodically than like the Descago, or forget the other brand. Uh, there's a couple Japanese manufacturers that make the rims for these right here, the rim bands and the hubs. Oh, that's what it is, Excel Rims. That's another good brand. But typically, this is going to be, you know, these rims right here are a little bit higher quality, thicker spoke material, better quality rim band, so it holds together a little bit better than a China rim. But still, you want to be checking your spokes probably like every oil change, every other oil change, maybe. I would say, depending on how hard you're riding and what tire pressures you're running at. If you're running a lower tire pressure, like typically under 12, you know, 14, 12 to 14 psi, you're going to want to check your spokes a little bit more periodically, I'd say, versus if you ran your tires at like, you know, more like at 16 to 18 psi. It's a little on the heavy end. Sometimes they'll even run them closer to like 20 psi, depending on like riding conditions. If I'm in the track with like a super sticky tire, usually I'll run that like 15, 16 psi, just because I don't want to spin my tires. Uh, but yeah, usually having a little bit of a higher tire pressure kind of helps with the impacts versus having a lower tire pressure. You run a risk of actually making contact and damaging your rim. So that's a little bit of the theory behind it. The stand, how often you might use it, kind of like the quality. This one's pretty badass. I'm using a Harbor Freight magnetic stand along with the Pittsburgh electronic dial indicator. And these parts right here are pretty dialed. They good enough for what we're trying to get out of it. Already, I think the highest run out we had was about 19, 20 thousandths. And I think I saw in the other directions about 3 or 4 thousandths. So total, all in all, there's maybe give or take about 25 thousandths a run out. That's actually really good for a used rim. And we can go ahead and check that again. We marked it right here. So we got negative. Ooh, let's go ahead and check that. Sometimes you gotta go slow. Going negative right there. So about 14 thousandths. I actually might change it just a little bit, but not a big deal. Going about 16 and 5/10, 17. I don't have to get that crazy. So basically 17 plus 14, we got about 31 thousandths. So that's really, once again, that's really not that bad. 31 thousandths of run out on a used rim. That's actually a lot better than, most bikes that I see. Usually, once you don't take care of them, these rims, if you let them go without the spokes being torqued, these rim bands right here, they just get so bent out of shape. You can go ahead and tighten the spokes, but you'll never get a good true on it. So this was either well maintained, maybe they never ridden in the dirt too much. It was just ridden in the street. But yeah, really nice. So next step basically is we're going to go ahead and work on this side. We can go ahead and move our dial indicator out of the way temporarily. And what we're going to do is just do kind of a quick check, essentially. So we'll find a good starting point. Again, this is where we start off with the dial indicator. We'll go ahead and mark it right there. And we'll also just leave our pen ready just in case if I notice any loose ones. And then I also have two tools here. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link in the description for the Motion Pro tool, wrench set. I just ordered one actually because I noticed I'm actually doing quite a bit of rims lately, and this is kind of my go-to universal ergonomic wrench right here, and it works pretty good for most bikes. But if you want to like not strip them out, or it all depends. This one right actually fits this bike perfectly. I measured it out and it's like has like 2 thousandths of free play, so it's a nice tight fit on this style of spoke. You can usually get the full wrench spoke wrench set for about $100 plus tax or shipping. And it's going to include 6 wrenches, and they're pretty good. It's going to come in all the different sizes, depending on if you have the OEM rims or if you have like an aftermarket rim. Because sometimes the aftermarket rims will actually have different spoke and nipple sizes than what the stock originally was. So the other thing too is if say I was like rebuilding or relacing a rim, I might use this one right here. This is a 7mm wrench, and it's going to be a little bit looser on the spoke nipple. It's gonna be just a little bit looser. I put some tape on it so I don't scratch it. Maybe I put a little too much, but it's just a little bit looser, actually a lot looser. And the reason why I do that is so like I can be kind of quick on it. I can kind of check them and tighten them up really quick. And then, versus this one, it's a really tight fit. So I'm gonna have to sit there and get it on precisely. With this one right here, the open end, I can kind of just bang them out really quick and get them to where I need them. And then once I start to get to the torquing procedure, then I'll use this spoke wrench due to its tighter fitting tool end here. So once we know where we're going to start, we already kind of went through them by hand and checked the tension, and most of them are good. So we're probably not going to use this one right here just because I know they're going to be pretty tight. Um, One other thing we could do is possibly spray all the nipples with WD-40 or some type of penetrating oil. I'm using this Maxima Products MPPL. This is kind of like my go-to product for everything. You use on everything, and it's really good shit. Um, but yeah, you would spray it, and then depending on how bad it is, you want to let it sit. And another thing too is once again, it kind of depends. Say I was relacing a rim. Typically on a new rim, I'm going to go from the top here. This one's been duct taped over, so it's pretty crappy. I don't recommend duct taping or using any type of tape on your rim because usually this tape holds in moisture, especially if you're like off-roading or power washing your bike or going through puddles. It's going to hold moisture in here, and usually the spokes and the rim are two different metals. You have aluminum rim bands with steel spokes, so it's going to be dissimilar metals, and they're going to corrode. Also, the spokes are steel. Or actually, no, I think these nipples are aluminum. It's the spokes that are steel. Aluminum nipple with steel spokes. So when you get water up in here, say you had like a rim band, the water might have a better chance to evaporate. But when you put duct tape over your rim spokes, like you can see all these right here are completely, pretty much completely covered. It's kind of a cool, it's a quick fix if you don't have a rim band for your bike. But what it's going to do is it's going to trap any water or moisture that gets in there. And then say over time your spokes do come loose and you want to do a truing or a spoke tightening, these things are going to be jacked. You're going to have to, usually when I do a spoke or a relacing on a rim, I just get a saw and I just cut all these off. I don't even bother taking them apart because you waste so much time with how seized they are. So if I run into that right now, it'll be kind of evident if I'm struggling to try to put a good torque on these. But if not, it should be pretty straightforward. And so the other thing too, you want to look at it. It's kind of a righty tighty. So if we're looking at the spoke from this direction right here, you're actually tightening the spoke. You'd be applying this spoke wrench downwards. You're going to be tightening this spoke onto the or this nipple onto the spoke here. So you just got to pay attention. If you have it down here, you got to make sure you're not accidentally loosening them. You got to make sure that you're tightening them. So we'll go ahead and start. Here's our marking right here. We can kind of put it right here too, so we have a better indication depending on how we're working on this. What we got here? Are those expensive to get painted? I want to throw some spoke rims onto a motorcycle I plan on buying, but I want to get the rim painted red and the wires painted black. Is this on a dirt bike, or is this for like a Harley or a street bike? What kind of project are we talking about here, Tom? Let's go ahead and answer a question while we got Tom asking a pretty legit question. Honda Shadow Saber. Oh, okay, so it's a cruiser. So if it's a cruiser, those, I don't think those are spoked like this. This has, I think those have big spokes, correct? Have to look it up on my phone, but I don't think those have a spoked rim, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Honda Shadow shares the same rims. Uh, Does the Ace and Saber have disc in the front and the rear? Well, it all depends. Usually, most motorcycle rims are going to be a tubeless design. Some of them do have tubes. Those could have tubes in them. If they do have tubes, that's it's probably going to be like this style of rim right here, where it's going to have like a rim band or whatever. Sometimes they do or they don't. If it's tubed, obviously it's going to have a rim band covering the spokes. That's typically what they do them on. Let's see. Like an ace rim could go on a saber. They could be interchangeable. The only way to know on something like that is you'd have to actually measure the hubs. If they're using different axle diameters, usually like a front rim, you have to know the distance between the two brake rotors. They could be like a different wider or more narrow. There's a lot of differentiations between maybe those two models. But I think if they're both 1,000 or 1,100 cc's, a lot of those parts are interchangeable. It's usually the trims, but technically, and most of the time, they are kind of changing out tires. They're changing out different panels, handlebars, color schemes, seats, fenders. Everything else kind of stays the same, like the engine design, most of the electrical. It's usually just like the accessories that change. So most of them might be interchangeable. Yeah, so with that case, then they're probably both going to be interchangeable. I would imagine, if it's a shaft drive in the rear, not chain, then they're going to have the hub so you can slide on the rear differential. If it's a spoke design, I would say, I mean, depending on what kind of look you're going for, most of those components I want to say are going to be aluminum. So you could get them powder coated. Um, I I'm trying to think what kind of process most of those parts are from the factory. It does look like they are powder coated. They don't use like raw and then anodize it in most cases, unless they're going for like a polished raw aluminum look. But most of those parts are they're gonna be powder coated in the most for most parts, or they're gonna use some type of electroplating or anodizing process. Okay, so if the shadow is drum, if one's drum and one's disc, it's probably gonna have different. It's gonna have completely different swing arms. Everything's gonna be different on them. Yeah. So let's go ahead and check this right here. See, so we're gonna go ahead and start on this side. Oh wow, pretty tight. And then usually I'll kind of alternate them. So I'll go 1, 2, 3. Basically, what you're doing is you're checking one opposite end. So instead of going like just checking them all, just in case they were just a little loose, you'll start to throw your run out a little bit on the rim. You want to alternate your spoke pattern. So the rule that I do is say we just started with this one right here. I put just a little turn on it. We're gonna go ahead and go 1, 2, and 3, and then on the third one, and it's typically always going to be on the opposite side of the rim, pulling up. That's going to be the next one that we're going to check. We'll go ahead here, little boop, and we'll go 1, 2, 3. We'll go 1, 2, 3. That one right there is just a little looser. We'll go. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. It's okay. If you notice you're doing like more than a quarter to half revolution, then you got to slow it down. Go to a quarter first and then go all the way around and double check them. Because if you start to go more than like a full turn or like half to a full turn, you're going to start to pull the rim in one direction. So you got to do this slow, methodically. You got to do small incremental adjustments. So, and sometimes too, when you're talking or if you're not fully paying attention, you want to make sure you mark them. So we started off with this one right here. Let's go ahead and mark it. So we want that one, the one 1, 2, 3. Then I usually like to mark them too, just so I know I already hit them. And then 1, 2, 3. Mark that one 1, 2, 3. So I think we already hit. So I've already hit this one right here. Yep. And then I think we hit this one. This one right here was kind of. Sometimes you have to come from the back side. Let's see. Yeah, that's tight. 1, 2, 3. It's a little. These are just like little 1/8 inch. So they are just. We're just a little loose. Oops. And that's the cool about the chalk. When you use the chalk, it wipes off pretty easily. Just in case you spill it like that. But hold on. Oops. Trying to do this at the same time. There we go. Yeah, and this stuff, the liquid chalk marker, it doesn't like damage the paint or anything like that. On aluminum rims, no problem, will come right off. If you're doing it on a painted rim, you might want to like be just a little bit more easier on the ink. But okay, cool. So we let off right there. 1, 2, 3. That one's good. We got 1, 2, 3. It's like this one has a little nick in the spoke. Okay. And you got to be careful too, because sometimes these spokes, like you think, oh yeah, it's tight, but they're just seized and you're not actually, torquing it. It's just not moving. In this case, these are pretty tight, so I feel like it's okay. And I'm getting like a 16th to an eighth of a turn on most of them. So that just tells me that this rim has probably been maintained and it's probably been a while. It just needs that extra 16th to an eighth of a turn to put the proper tension on these spokes. We'll go ahead and go again. So 1, 2, 3. That one's not even moving. That's good. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. We got 1, 2, 3. We got 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then 1, 2, 3. Then 1, 2, 3. So that would land us right back to the one that we started at. Pretty good. So then the next thing we can do, you could probably jump to the next one if you want to, since this was technically good. Not sure. I never really thought about it, but it all depends. It doesn't really make too much of a difference because you're going to have to usually make about 3 passes, sometimes 4 passes to check them all. So that was the last one that we started at. So now we're going to go ahead and start here. And we'll go. That one's good. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. You can almost do this a little faster. Once you've done the first round and you mark them, you almost just know where to look. Like we just did that one. So 1, 2, 3. It's obviously it's one past the mark that we already wrote down. So I'm just showing this for practical purposes so you get the idea. But once you become a little bit more seasoned or get the idea, you don't have to necessarily count it out. That may be true on all rims, and I'm trying to think if it makes a difference. On once you get to the third or fourth pass, you'll start hitting the same spots again. So I want to say this definitely works up for the second round. You can kind of speed it up, and we'll have to see if maybe for the next round if it makes a difference. But let's see here. So this was the last one we did. So 1, 2, 3. Go ahead, tying this one up. And 1, 2, 3 right here. Oh, that one's good. Yeah, so far none of these spokes are seriously loose. 3, or they could be frozen, but I feel like they're good. 1, 2, 3. It's pretty good. We got 1, 2, 3. Well, it's just a little loose. Put about a eighth of a turn into that one. We got 1, 2, and 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And we're almost right around the corner again where we're gonna. Okay, so that one's actually kind of loose. Huh, interesting. That kind of tightened it up. We'll check that one again. Put a bigger line on that one since that one was kind of loose. Come back and check that one. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, nice and normal. 1, 2, 3. All right, and once again, we're back on the where we started. So let's go ahead and start on this one now. Kind of write a 3, 2, 1 if you want. So you kind of have an idea of what you're doing. All right, little pass. 1, 2, and 3. So I'm noticing this side, the brake rotor side, those spokes seem like they're a little bit looser than the other side, than the drive side, which is kind of interesting. That's an interesting observation. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen that I'm tying up that side more because it's kind of hard to get a pull on the right side. And once again, I'm not charging the customer to essentially like relace this rim. I'm just doing a standard check the spokes, and this is part of checking them. Usually on a good condition bike, you're just going to run it through really quick and check them. I'm going an extra step for YouTube and for demonstration purposes by setting up the dial indicator. Typically, we're not going to do this in the shop. You're just going to basically, the standard service is just check all the spokes, make sure they're tight. If they are, good. If they're not, then we're going to usually recommend a truing service where we're going to spend the extra time, usually up to an hour, hour and a quarter per rim. Sometimes we got to take the tire. Most of the time, you got to take the tire off the bike, so it's going to be a little bit more time. But that's just what it takes to do this properly. So we just started here, number 3. We went 1, 2, 3. We checked this one. So that's good. It's a little, but a mark that one was kind of sketchy. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And it's pretty much at this point, you're just hitting all the spokes that you haven't done yet. So we can even just speed this up. We don't even have to count. Okay. Oop, losing tools. Ugh. Okay, so where were we? That's the cool thing. You lose position, you can come back and kind of see where you left off at. So 1, 2, and 3. So probably this one, 1, 2, and 3. And then 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. So yep, that's pretty much it. We've already gone pretty much. It takes about 3 revolutions in that doing that procedure to hit all the spokes. And if you take a look, if you're tracking it by marking each spoke to take care of it, once you get good, you can kind of do it by eyeball, or you just keep track of it mentally. But marking all the spokes individually as you go through it is just kind of a visual reminder, especially if you lose focus or track of where you're at, like, hey, this is how I do it. And then obviously, of course, go back, double check them by hand. We didn't apply a lot of attention to it. I mean, these are already pretty much good. I could hear a little pop and squeeze from the spoke heads right here, inside the hub, kind of moving a little bit. And now that they've been tightened just that eighth of a turn, I don't hear that clicking and popping anymore. And it's very minute. So that right there kind of tells me, oh, okay, we just took out the tension out of the spoke. So the spoke head right here in the hub, it isn't shifting a lot. Tom Gino, I'm located out of Southern California, USA, baby. Um, let's see, but yeah, that's pretty much how to true it, and then after you can go by on hand. And then if you want to, like, say these were really loose or they're questionable, like there was a couple of them here. This one I marked because I noticed I had a couple more turns. I think there was one more that, and this one right here, that I marked a little bit more heavy, longer on the stripe. That's just to let me know, like, I had to tighten those a little bit more than the rest. But here's one thing we can do too. Go ahead and come back to the side that we started on. Let's see here. I think we're like right here. Come right here and basically turn on our dial indicator, zero her out. Should be good. Okay, and let's just see where we're at. negative 18, 16, 18. See if we increased runout or decreased runout. So 17, 18, say about 17. Ooh. Does that line up with? That kind of lines up with sometimes it won't pull. It's not because of a spoke that you tighten on this side. It's because of one that you tighten on the other side. So you just kind of got to pay attention for that. You start pulling on spokes too much and you'll actually start to change the run out. So it looks like it moved quite a bit at 0. So let's double check it. Got negative. Sometimes the plunger kind of hangs up or there's little nicks and burrs that might give it a weird reading. So I got about 19 thousandths. And we're going positive 21, 22. It's like a scrape in the rim. See that right there? How it goes up from 18 back down to 0. So that means that means the rim's getting pushed to the left, and then as I rotate it, it's actually going back out to the right. Start to drop right here. So that's kind of it's that right there is kind of like almost a bend, or who knows, maybe we induce that. I don't think that's possible because I'm looking at my marks here. All these were quarter turn, 16th to 8th turns, except for this one right here and that one right there. So sometimes if you pull too much on one side on the opposite end of the rim, you'll get weird it won't necessarily happen up there, but it'll kind of change the location of where you're adjusting and the opposite side of the rim. So that's what you have to be careful for. It'll usually kind of start to induce like a hop. So technically what if we say about 15, 30, 40? So far it looks like I may have increased run out by about 9 thousandths, 10 thousandths of an inch. That's not a whole lot. You're not really going to feel that. So maybe I could have been a little bit more methodical in how I adjusted it, but typically on like a used rim, that's just kind of how it's going to be. That 10 thousandths is so negligible. You're not going to, you're probably not going to feel it, and you'll spend just way too much time chasing that 10 thousandths in most cases. But let's see if it kind of lines back up or with where we're at. Sometimes you can kind of adjust too. So that's our original starting point. So it moved like we're at like 0. So I'm not sure. Sometimes you could be losing a couple thousandths, the rim's moving or whatever. Let's try you have a lot of sometimes you get like movement in your equipment. So the reason why this is negative, this is pulled too much to the right. So I'd almost have to try to, and that makes sense. I kind of pulled on these ones a little bit more. This one was kind of loose. So the way to fix that, um, let's see, that was loose, so pulled it up. Let's see. No, actually, well, because what? It was more positive here and then dropping. So, no, maybe I could actually pull on it a little bit more because if that's zero, probably going to pull it this way. The only thing you got to be careful of is just inducing hops sometimes if you go too much. Yeah, I could probably go a little bit more on this one and pull it because we're at like negative 18. If I pull it towards the left, try to bring it to zero. Let's see if that's even possible. Uh, Usually I go like this. These are all too tight. So get a little pull out of that one. So sometimes you'll notice too, there's really no way unless you start loosening up spokes. It's just really not worth it. Just tie them up, get yourself ran on the bike. The other thing too, what's always a possibility, and you have to factor this in too. I just forgot to mention it's a good thing. So if you guys are paying attention right now, one other thing, I just noticed it right now when I was rotating the rim and checking, not only with the scratches, but if you have bad wheel bearings in your hub, and you're doing this, say they're really bad, you could be chasing, thinking, oh, my spokes, my rims all loose, but it's really the bearings are so worn out that when it gets to a certain position where it's worn, it'll actually drop like quite a bit. And you're like, oh, dang, you know, uh, why is the run out so bad? So that's another thing to be very wary of when you're checking a used rim, especially one that's like this. That's probably never had. I'm looking at the wheel bearing seals; those look original, so it probably has original bearings in it. And if these are original bearings, that's why I got. That's why I won't chase things like that because that 10 thousandths that I'm getting in differentiation, in deflection here or run out, that could be just, half of that could be just blown out wheel bearings. We can just assume easily, there's a couple thousandths maybe difference, maybe these bearings here in the shaft and just overall, it's not going to be accurate to like the thousandth, especially if it's moving. This machine really isn't like precise enough, and we're not going to be measuring to that, that close. Usually, if you can get it within like 20, if you're really good, 10, 15 thousandths is amazing. That's actually pretty achievable on like a new rim, new hub, new spokes, new bearings. That's usually how it works. If it's in pretty bad condition like this one, if you can get between 20 to 30 thousandths, you're usually gonna be in the good. You're not even going to notice that. Once you start to get over like 40, 50 thousandths, you can kind of visually see that much run out in a bike. Once you start to get like over 100 thousandths, that's like an eighth of an inch. You're definitely going to notice that, but you probably won't feel it. But if we just go ahead and give it a little spin, see if we, I mean, it looks okay. It's not bad. Doesn't like have a huge, you can see the little micro wobbles in it though. And that's what I was talking about. That's just the rim bending over time. It's an aluminum rim, so depending on the air pressure and how it's treated, you can kind of see it has just a little bit of a wobble. And there's really no point of trying to chase that. We got it here. We have a actual idea of how much run out there is in the rim. And usually I'll eyeball kind of the hop in it, the lateral run out, or this is lateral run out. That would be considered vertical run out. Usually the vertical run out, you can check that too. You just find a point here on the rim. You definitely do that on a new rim, but on a used rim, typically like one like this that has a lot of corrosion, typically the inside of the rim gets bent. You get rocks in it. Trying to check the vertical run out on a used rim is typically a bitch just because there's going to be so many different variations in the surface. and just how it gets damaged. So it's typically on a used rim, unless it's in really good condition. Going off that surface isn't the most accurate. If it's, especially if you can tell it's visibly bent, then you just kind of want to do it with caution. Try to get it down to what you think, 10, 15 thousandths. If you're trying to chase it more than that, that's where you start to put wobbles and you start to induce hops into your rim. So another really good way to go off of it too is when I relace it, say you were to like relace this rim here, if you take a look at the spokes here, let's see if we can kind of zoom in. Um, most of these spokes here, let's see, you can see how there's like a couple threads sticking out in each one. Usually when you're relacing a rim, that's kind of like takes a long time to do it that way, but usually you can kind of eyeball it. You set them up till all those, you have the same amount of threads protruding, and that's typically going to be pretty accurate. But that only works on like a brand new rim. Like I said, once the rim's beat up like this, you're all the way it wears, you'll never be able to get it super close, and you'll just waste a lot of time and usually create problems. So that's pretty much going to be about it. If you wanted to, you could go ahead, now that we've gone over, done 3 cycles and checked every spoke. The next procedure, basically to double check your work, you'd start back at your starting point on number 1 here. And in theory, if you just went over them and just checked them lightly, none of them should really move. And if you do find that one does start to move, then that means, there usually was an area that was loose, and then you changed, the tension on that section of the rim. So none of them should really move. Just checking the torque. Got to be careful. Having a torque wrench sometimes works. Once again, having a torque wrench usually only works on like a brand new rim. Once you start to get the corrosion in there, it just you got to kind of have the experience and feel it by hand. So to answer your question, where is this off of? This is off of a 2001 or 2002 Yamaha WR250F. I'll go ahead and show you guys right now, right after I check this. Just double checking my work. Make sure these are all good. So this is a little bit above and beyond what I would do. Like I said, if typically at the dealership or on a newer bike, you just check them really quick. You're not going this far. This is kind of something that you have to do on an older bike. You kind of can't skip this step. It's just usually what comes with the job of doing, a bike that's almost 25 years old. Typically the spokes and everything's going to be original and corroded, worn out. So you're going to be dealing with, something that's potentially more difficult to make perfect versus something that only has like a couple hours on it. Judging by this bike and the condition, I'm going to guess it has like 300 hours, 400 hours on it. Okay, and we're back to where we started. Cool. So this is the bike that we're working on here. This is a 2001 through 2002 Yamaha WR250F. I will take a look here. Has the sticker. It's pretty much this is like the first generation of WR series. Yamaha still hadn't came out with their 450 yet, if I'm not mistaken, the YZ 450F. I believe they're still on the YZ 426. And that's when the 5 valves were in style. They changed this design, I think, in 08. They went from a 5 valve to a 4 valve. But this is pretty much almost identical to a YZ 450F motor. The ATV and the dirt bike, they're all pretty much the same. What makes the WR a little bit different than the YZ engine wise is typically going to be, I think they have different stators. That's the main thing. They may have a slightly different piston. I believe the crankshafts are going to be the same, and the valves are going to be the same, heads are going to be the same. They might have a slightly different compression ratio achieved by changing the piston or having a different piston. And then the cams might be a little bit different. They're probably not going to be designed for higher horsepower. They're going to be probably a little bit more retarded and valve timing. So it's probably going to produce a little bit more torque. Since this is a WR, that's typically what they're going for. You'll hear people, you can switch cams, interchange cams on these. You just have to be really careful and know what you're doing. You almost got to check valve lift and valve duration, because once you start, changing it, it's you could run into valve interference, which would definitely destroy a motor like this. But I've heard of a lot of people doing that. I'm almost thinking about doing it on my bike. I have a 05 YZ450F. I have a pair of cams out of a YZ or a YFZ 450, the ATV quad. So I know from looking at them, they look nearly identical. I just think the cam low position timing is a little bit different. But besides that, certain parts are interchangeable on this. But yeah, to not get too deep into it, I'm doing a bunch of services on this bike. I'm doing obviously the rear tire with you know, we're obviously truing the rim here. We're putting new tube, new tires. I did a full carburetor rebuild. Ugh. This is a FCR. Oh, losing parts here. This is the FCR carburetor. Pretty much did a full rebuild. The main body, mid body, the bowl area here. And that's going to be another video that's I've already recorded, just got to edit it, and we'll get that going. That's going to be a members only video, and that goes into detail on how to fully pretty much assemble this carb from a clean condition, all the little details, nicks and tricks. And then even going a step further, I install a performance jetting kit, and I kind of go into the details and specifics based off of like humidity, altitude, temperature, and basically modifications to the bike, and choosing different jetting combinations and jet needle combination positions to achieve the best tuning. And we're gonna go ahead and finish it up. Once we finish, I still have to do a valve adjustment. I got to go through the electrical. The electrical on this bike was super hacked up. Got a couple more things I got to do, but biggest thing was to get this rear tire on, new rear tire, chain sprockets. We got this brand new rebuilt carburetor to install. And then we also got to do a valve adjustment on this bike. And then pretty much after we knock out that valve adjustment, that's pretty much it. All the major services have been done. I can fire this thing up and see how it works with hopefully my tuning's good. 99% of my tuning's pretty spot on 99% of the time, especially when I use like a kit. And just to kind of show you guys, I think it's right here, have like a little cheat sheet. So have all these specs here. I kind of go over that in the video. So I'm just not like talking, throwing numbers out there. I'm actually using data and a chart to basically pick the best combination based off of your climate to get this thing tuned. So I'm located out here in Southern California. So that's how I tune this carburetor right here. And another thing we gotta do too, we're going to be expanding into is this is off of a CBR 929. I'm going to actually dissect this CDI box or this PCM box here, and we're going to go ahead and replace some of the resistors or diodes on it. We got to figure out exactly what shorted, but asking me a new service for sure, the CBR 929, I think I'll be able to learn and do the F4i as well, because they have similar ECUs. And then I may even expand into like the Gixxer 600, because that's like another popular bike. I've done quite a few Gixxer 600 ECUs, but I'm trying to see if I can reverse engineer it. But obviously that's a completely different topic than working on this WR here. So we have, who is this? We have DB97. Can you explain to us what camera setup you're using? The point of view is cool. Yeah, so I'm actually going to post that in my description also. I just bought this equipment not that long ago, and if you guys, some of my longtime followers, you've probably noticed this was kind of like the setup that I used to use in the past. Was basically like this clamp setup right here with the camera, and I just have to clamp it on, random places, and just a lot of movement and unsteadiness, versus now I can kind of work free with my hands. It's mounted to my chest. Everything looks tits. My setup, you guys can hear me, I'm hoping pretty loud and clear. But I'll go ahead and drop all the links for that because I think I did get all this stuff off of Amazon. So I really like this equipment, this setup here. I haven't really, I think I used it on the track once for my mini bikes and my GoPro, and I actually am very impressed with this brand of chest mounted strap. And then I'm using my iPhone. I think I got an iPhone 14 or 15, one of those. I'm using like this pretty cool camera mount cell phone holder that holds it along with the chest strap. It's pretty, it's pretty durable, not too much bounce. I feel like it's, holds a pretty stable picture. So I'll definitely post that if you follow my channel, come back to it probably, maybe tonight or a couple days. I should have that updated, and anybody else that's interested, I'll go ahead and drop links for this equipment here. So if you guys, it's not only good for just holding my camera like this. I use this. I almost feel like the harness that I'm wearing is a little bit better than the GoPro brand, the Genuine GoPro brand. It's like a little bit more ergonomic and like fits my chest a lot more solid than the other one. It's like made for like a bigger man like myself. So yeah. So I want to say that's pretty much it. Um, it's about as far as we're gonna go on doing this rim here. I think the customer is gonna be happy, and in the sense of, they'll probably be able to ride this thing for a long time. And nobody likes waking up one day and finding out. I actually have a customer's bike outside right now where the spokes came loose. And typically, what happens is once a nipple comes loose and it's inside here, it typically pops the tube. Or what will happen is the spoke will start poking the inside of the tube. So if your spokes are loose and you change out the tube, typically you only get a couple of rides out of it, maybe only one ride, depending on how bad it is, and you'll end up popping that tube and you'll be back at square one. So I actually have a KO 230 with the same issue. We're going to go ahead and take a dive into that. Customer wants us to check out the carburetor, and I know it has a couple other issues, so we'll see if we can get them a diagnostic, see if we can get them an estimate to do those, or depending on the severity of it. But that might be another video I might make on, depending on if the customer approves. It's probably going to be the same thing: pull their tire, replace the tube, and then hopefully they show me the nipple actually fell off, and I'm assuming it's hopefully inside the rim still, and we can go ahead and reuse it, tying up the spokes like we did on this rim, put the new tube and get all buttoned up. And as long as they keep tire pressure in it, should be good. I don't think those KOs come with the rim lock like how these Japanese bikes do. So it's very important. You kind of can't run them as low as tire pressure PSI is a rim that has a rim lock. That's the whole purpose of having one, is to run a tube at lower PSI so you can get a little bit more traction depending on the media or dirt, riding conditions that you're in. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Basic tools: stand, electronic dial indicator, spoke wrenches, marking pen. It's pretty straightforward. So then if you wanted to, you could take a little bit of parts cleaner. If this was a brand new anodized rim, I may not recommend doing this. I'd probably recommend like a soap water. But this right here makes it quick and easy. You just come right over and just wipes right off without leaving like any crazy residue or anything. Like so customer wouldn't even know that, it just looks like a professional job. Wouldn't even know that you pretty much spent all the time going through each spoke. But this is basically the procedures, how to do this. Guys have any other questions too, tonight's a good night. I'll probably be wrapping it up here shortly on the live stream. Probably going to call it a night. We have a bunch of other work we got to do tomorrow. Probably going to do that valve adjustment and see if we can get this bike fired up. And then we got a couple other bikes that we got to get started on. We have a Harley Davidson Dyna 2000 that we got to do a diagnostics, figure out where it's leaking from. I know we got to replace the shifter shaft on it and some oil seals. That one I did a chain conversion, so that's going to be kind of cool. I did a bunch of work to it, so that's hopefully something we can get to tomorrow also. We'll see if we can make a live stream out of that, doing a diagnostics. Obviously, we're going to probably have to order some parts, so probably won't be doing any repairs, but definitely we need to figure out where it's leaking from, kind of go over the services that I did in the past. And if you're interested, if you, I believe it was a 99 through 2000 Harley Davidson Dyna, kind of one of the older ones, but I did some pretty serious work. I did front fork rebuild, I did steering bearing replacement, and I did a chain drive conversion. Um, and I also think I did some like basic electrical work to it. And then I think the shifter shaft replaced it, so I ended up welding that on for him. But it all needs to be replaced. So that's going to end up turning into a job too. But yeah. So at this point right here, the other thing to consider is we do have all this duct tape on it. I'm probably just gonna leave it the way it is because I mean I'm gonna get too OCD once I see how bad it looks under here. It's probably, you know, the best way is clean it up with the wire wheel. But once again, this bike kind of falls into you know, the budget category. We're not doing a full restoration. We're not trying to completely save it. And maybe having this tape, he does have a rubber rim band that's in pretty good condition still that we'll be using. So the tape and the rim band kind of acts as a, you know, a double measure, but we are using a heavy duty tube. So there is kind of a point where it is a little overkill, but just because it's already been done, I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, or go through all these extra steps just because the customer essentially isn't paying for it. And this right here is more of like a hookup. I've gotten quite a few bikes for them actually, and they're a pretty good customer with me. You know, they don't give me any problems, and typically, you know, don't question the value of the work. So I don't mind going an extra step and just, you know, doing a basic check on the spokes. We're pretty much dissecting this rim here, you know, getting a really good evaluation of it, really making sure everything's dialed in. So I know my customer is going to get like, once I'm done with this bike, all they should have to do is do an oil change on it every 10 hours. That's all they should have to do to this bike. Oh, and replace those fork seals because those fork seals are leaking pretty bad. But assuming everything else is good, I'm going to change the oil. We'll find out what the oil looks like once we change it. But yeah, yep, gotta do that chain sprocket. Maybe we should finish that right now. We do have a lot of followers in here, so maybe we can go ahead and wrap up into that. I do need to get this tire on before, obviously we need to get this tire on before we go ahead and put the sprocket on. I got the hardware fresh out of the parts washer. I got to hit him with some compressed air, and then we're going to go ahead and put on the sprocket here. We're probably going to knock that out tonight. I'm not going to record installing the tire. That's just going to be a struggle session. You know, in the dark too. I don't do my tires in my shed. I do them outside. So won't show the tire. I'm going to take a break, let the cameras charge. I'm going to go ahead and get this tire mounted onto this rim here. And then once I finish, I'm going to go ahead and come back, and then we're going to install that brand new sprocket there. And then I already have, if you guys were in the last video, the part one, we already took everything apart, got that new front sprocket on. And then we have our brand new chain here. Comes with 2 rivets, clip style and rivet style. We're going with the JT X1R chain. It's pretty cool. It has a polyurethane O-rings in it instead of like Buena or Buene. I forget how you pronounce it. Bueno. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, guys. Give me a break. I know it's about 0200 hours right now. It's about 2 a.m. on the West Coast. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. Maybe drink a little bit more mocha and pop another Zin, and kind of finish up this job here. Get this bike put back down on the ground. So pretty much tomorrow we can go ahead and focus on that valve adjustment, getting that carburetor. Another thing too, actually, without getting too carried away and distracted, is I got to clean that intake port. That intake port is full of oil and dirt, which kind of sucks, but we're going to see if we can clean that out for them the best that we can before we put on our new carburetor. And then, yeah, still got an engine oil change, coolant flush, got to check the bolts, nuts, and fasteners. And yeah, that should be it. So If you guys aren't following me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I do these right now. I'm doing these videos pretty consistently, daily almost. And like I said, probably in like the next 30 minutes or so, we'll probably do another live stream. So there's a bunch of night owls up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be working on some WRs here. So give this video a thumbs up. I appreciate the engagement. It's kind of pretty cool to have you guys in the chat, asking questions. If you guys have any questions in the future, if you guys are watching this video, once it's posted, go ahead and hit those comment boxes. Most basic questions I get to. If you want more in-depth detail on something, subscribe to my premium memberships. I think that's what it is. I have the basic, the tutorial, and premium memberships, and that gives you access to a lot of these more in-depth videos. And it also kind of includes some perks like, you can hit me up on Instagram if you have a question. And typically for paying members, don't mind helping you guys out, getting pretty down in depth on the detail, whatever it be, the theory of whatever the problem is, to kind of help you diagnose it. Try to keep your bike out of the shop, keep it in your own hands, keep it DIY, do it yourself. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we will be right back.